Save him! I come for you. Lone Wolf and Cub, Volume 1. Los Angeles, California, May 10th, 2014, 15:17:56. Again, Anwar cranks the wheel right, chooses the accelerator. The Honda lurches forward across another lane, tires compressing on another curb, this time missing the driveway, trying for more room to make the turn, jerking everything to a halt before he can hit the brakes. Now Anwar is the one blocking traffic. He'll have to back up unless he drives up on the sidewalk. There's no room to back up. Honks again, all kinds, none of them his. Sidewalk it is. He should have stopped right then and there. He can't believe he let traffic push him along. Anwar's already circled twice, and this time, his third. Did she not go down the hill? Could she have somehow crossed the street and headed east? He even, lost in dangerous, thought-crippling thoughts, went too far. 2 blocks, nearly 3. So much rain, spills like lakes, moving lakes, tidal surges, spreading out in search of any slope to pull the whole watery drape down the face of another hill. Easily worse than the rains of early March. Then rivers ran out to the canyons and trash cans flew along until they smashed taillights. Circle back again. Must get himself redirected. Take the soonest right, thinking to call her too if he could get himself to stop. He can't stop, panic driving him faster ahead. Still out there, Xanther. Without a word, Xanther. Door open, rain pouring in. One moment, there he's. The next, oh, daughter, she's a blur, not even a blur, away, inexplicably, racing through an intersection, an ocean, where cars sink and daughters vanish. Out of sight, out of reach. Anwar punches the accelerator. Back wheels at once, lose traction. Stupid! Speed will only increase risk. Compromised purpose. Momentum affords no clarity. Direction grants no comprehension. Wipers lost long ago. Each swipe for a view finds only larger swipes of water, battering the windows and fences of small homes, dragging loose palm fronds over stalled cars. Out there where a little girl in a bright orange raincoat remains dissolved in the ever-increasing surge. Except, Anwar just notices, she isn't orange. Xanther left her raincoat behind on the seat. She's out in the storm wearing what? Anwar can't remember. A white t-shirt, right?
Pink with black flag silk screen.
Which somehow makes everything worse, as if Anwar couldn't recognize his daughter without proper storm gear on. Qui s'abonne en dessous, ça sent la grenade mieux moment. Was that why she bolted? When Anwar turned the radio station back to KUSC, that explanation made about as much sense as the weather, which the more and more of it there was, and more just seemed to get added to the equation, the more it seemed to be something else entirely. As they had been heading into Venice, Anwar had even been telling himself, we are not in Kansas. Things didn't seem that off. The weather that rough. Not even a tornado would have surprised him. Why not some water spout just offshore? At times, it seemed, the sky would drop down like a wave, crushing all the traffic in spray and something thicker than fog, only to, in the next moment, and just as suddenly too, burst apart, providing a glimpse of horizon still smeared with dark, if distant, falling waters. Those are called vergae, Anwar had then pointed out to Xanther, making conversation, playing the professor. You mean like my birthday? Anwar didn't follow. What is it with tweens and their likes? A moment needed then to clear up what Xanther had meant. She heard Virgo the familiar replaces the unknown. Do you, hate me for being so stupid? Hate? Stupid? The utterances this child was sometimes capable of. Anwar reminding himself that what a child says, even if it's the same thing an adult says, is not the same thing. A child may know the feeling that builds hate, but not hate itself as a thing that can live across the years. For one thing, whether she could accept it or not, Xanther had an extraordinary memory, doubly extraordinary for one who had endured epilepsy her whole life. Anwar made sure to say as many times as he could, in as many ways as he could think of, sometimes repetition and redundancy is the only way to get through. Daughter, you have no idea how bright you are. But I can never, remember anything. Not like Frey or Shast. No one remembers everything, which I assure you is a blessing. A memory of everything would be a curse. One day, Borges. Why did Xanther think Anwar made such a project out of all these vocabulary words? Maybe she didn't think to ask that question, and Anwar didn't say why. Verge, esemplastic, paradise, pragmatic, subsidize. Did not one great philosopher Liberty, educated by his father, John Stuart Mill, learnt Greek at 3, Latin by 8, Newtonian theory by 11? By 12, had he not read Aesop, Herodotus, Plato, Virgil, Cervantes, Defoe, and who knows who else? Why did the successes of parental pedagogy had to fall exclusively on physical triumphs? Richard Williams and Serena, Earl Woods and Tiger? Or was that all too much? Anwar knew people regarded him as kind, but more often than not, he discovered in his drive for solution, progress, and purpose something dangerously akin to mean. Maybe it was all a ruse. Maybe he was just another mean guy, mean black guy, reviving the same old misogynistic and racial stereotypes by subjugating wives and daughters with bludgeoning syllables instead of drunk knuckles. Promise her. Why so sigh, Professor? Xanther had asked then, so much for the concealment of adult feelings, these awful stresses. This after whispering Verge to herself a number of times, and even Calathump. Where did she pick that up? She is worth the risk. 20K, whatever it takes. She is worth every risk. Outside, the tumble of rain had seemed with every louder and heavier wave to incarnate real risk. Back by the church of St. Mark on Coeur d'Alene Avenue, a lone palm tree was ripped apart, the first of many to come, pinnate leaves knifing the air. Dull thuds follow, like a coconut hitting their hood. Do these palm trees have coconuts? But it was only water. Also around that time, Xanther was cracking the window. Just the slight separation of glass and rubber, and her face was beaded with rainwater. You could drown out there, Anwar mumbled, barely. The storm so big it had ceased to sound like, even seem like, a storm oceanic. Biblical was more like it. Maybe the cabin would flood, and all of them drown. Xanther had said something. She had looked so distracted, too. More than? Anwar had seen that expression before, too many times. Worry returned with a force equal to any storm, not a storm. Anwar doing his best to weather that familiar anxiety. Even if there was nothing he could do, if it happens, it happens. He would deal with it. They would deal with it. She would deal with it. A little later, he asked if the rain tasted like seawater, as if to suggest all this wind was picking up and scattering the Pacific, to distract her from her own distractions with a dumb joke, and bring her back to him at ease, audible. After all, they were almost there. And then fists thundered down on the roof of the element. All around, car alarms went off, horns followed, and, still, the rain grew louder. Anwar jumped. Had Xanther? Maybe not. And then a taste of rainwater seemed to seep into his mouth. Sweet for a moment. Too sweet. Sweet and clear? Because maybe it wasn't rainwater? No, maybe. Maybe it was blood. Anwar subtly drowning in red. Anwar dying. Anwar already dead. All this time spent worrying about Xanther, and he was the one. Imploding at the whim of a strange embolism, and of all moments at this moment, without even premonition. Accidents never happen until they've happened. Who said that? Anwar will go down choking and sputtering in a geyser of human ink spent on the inside. What the autopsy would reveal, just not the right inside. And, the same as with all of Xanther's impossible questions, he, too, would never know why. Dove at least had known why. No warning needed, or premonition. What an odd, dying thing to think. 2 fathers in 1 year? Too much. No sense. Is this a stroke? Bright coals again. Traffic stopped. Anwar must protect her. Foot punching the brake. He must alert her. Hand flails to shift into park. Above all, she must not see him. Not like this. Was that a Matrix quote? They'd watched that together too many times. Anwar turning her, to warn her to not see him. Tell her to get out and get help. Realizing he really, as Astaire so often says, was only tasting rain. Lots of it too, clear and sweet. No hint of salt, let alone blood. Not the window is always closed. Xanther's closed again. Rather the passenger door. Not just ajar either, but wide open. Too wide to even reach across and shut. Wind and rain whipping around inside. Water drenching the dashboard, soaking the floor. Collecting on her seat, on her orange raincoat in fact. Left behind. Why couldn't he have seen that the first time? And Xanther nowhere in sight. Just like that. In a blast of storm. Taken. Anwar had barely caught a glimpse of Xanther racing away. Where are the blazes? A blur then across the windshield, like a stab of headlight. Of something white, no, pink. Of course it had been her. Anwar, for some reason, had seized on seeing her only in orange. What choice does he have now? Now easing the car along the sidewalk until traffic allows him to re-emerge. Anwar doesn't merge. Instead, he cuts across a corner, picking up speed again, just missing a stop sign, hydrant 2 slamming down over another curb. Then skids onto a side street, this one, thankfully void of cars, set to race around the block in the right direction. But is this the right choice? Until he, just as abruptly, jams brakes for a standstill, briefly instead, to think now, where the, and what the, to look around, all along the parked vehicles, down the street, scanning future intersections which he can't make out, beyond impossible walls of water, lamps, dark with power, failure. Squinting for some sign, where's she gone? Desperate for some clue, any clue, which Anwar won't find on this street anyway, why she ran in the first place, before moving again. But Anwar still can't see a thing. And why does this present, this particular now, suddenly feel already 10 years deep or even deeper? Still not yet here. He still can't find her. 7 minutes gone. Finding what? By blur of water and wiper, block after block, stop, start, stop, circling, start and stop. Where did she go? At least part of him, his desperate eye, returning to the tall savanna grass of Paradise Open where, this time, a head, striped tail on hind legs on hoof, not so much dashing as disappearing, just like Xanther with her left, changed to right. Into grass, into water, where every possible recovery seems always swallowed up. What Anwar, Estisham, Talbot, and Glasgow had all discovered, Mephisto leading them along, hunger, when it's not an obstacle, depletion, weakness, breakdown, is a powerful organizer, prioritizing, refining, optimizing action. That was the predator Anwar designed, what has not eaten, what is eaten away at by hunger, what must eat, what must hunt to eat, what must think to eat. Thanks to those algorithms from which MET derives its relentless drive that anticipates so well. But Anwar is not his own algorithms. He still can't find her. And Xanther isn't even running away from him, or is she? From all the dumb vocabulary words? Maybe from the music? Something else? From Anwar himself? Never her real father? It doesn't matter. He still can't find her. Daddy! Xanther screams. She finds him. Door, driver's side, ripped open. Out of nowhere. Eyes wide. Wide? With panic. Already inside. Arms thrust out to him. Covered in blood. Daddy! Save him! Los Angeles, California, May 10th, 2014, 152107.